As a recruiter, have you ever been in the position where you are out headhunting for a particular role and you're building a list of potential candidates that are interested in discussing the opportunity with you, and then a week later you find yourself in a position where you're like, oh, who did I speak to last week? Who did I need to follow up with? It's whenever you're headhunting candidates, it's never like straightforward. It's never you reach out to somebody, they say, yes, I'm interested, and you have the call or the interview that day, and the CV is sent later that evening. These things take time. And during that process of, firstly, the candidate initially, has expressed interest, and then you have the first conversation, you might then send a spec. A week later, you have a follow-up interview. In that time period, it's easy to just lose track of candidates. And I hear it from freelance recruiters that we work with, where they're like, I know that in my LinkedIn inbox somewhere there's somebody that said last week they're interested. I just can't find out. I can't remember who they are. Well, we've built a pipelining tool which attaches into our free database, which will hopefully solve those problems. And it's really simple. It just creates tickets where when somebody expresses interest, you can create a ticket for them, and then you can just drag them along the pipeline all the way through until they're ready to be sent to your client. So I'll give you a quick demonstration so you can see exactly how it works. The screen that you can currently see that I'm sharing with you is what we call our database pipeline. Now, the database pipeline is just where you are pipelining candidates that are in your database, so headhunted candidates, before you actually send them across to the role. We have an interview pipeline board as well, which is a very similar board, just helps you manage candidates through the process after you've sent them to the role. And as you can see, the database pipeline has expressed interest, meeting booked, ready to send, and sent to job as the different columns. And to add a candidate, you've actually got three different options: either add candidate button, clicking in the column, or using the universal create button to add a candidate. Now, because they're potentially a headhunted candidate, at this stage you might not know much about them. So we only ask you to enter first name, last name, role title, and location. And once you create that, the system will open up a candidate card for you. Now, this is the place where you can leave notes on a candidate. You can attach the CV of the candidate you're working with, and then start to fill in the personal details on the left-hand side as you start to gather that information from the candidate. And at the same time, what it's done is it's created a ticket for you here. So you can see that you can drag these candidates along, these tickets along the board until you're at the point where you're ready to send them to the job. Now, the more candidates you add, the more tickets there'll be. And this is, as I say, a really simple way to then keep on track of who's come back to you and expressed interest, and you need to kind of move them to the next stage of booking that interview, that meeting, whatever it may be. If you want to remove a candidate at any time, you can remove them by simply just the top three buttons in a ticket and remove. It will remove them from the board, that action, but if you go to the candidates and then database, you'll see that the candidate is still in the database, but they've actually just been marked as dormant. And if you want to bring them back onto the pipelining board, you simply just change their status back, save it, and you'll find that they're then back in the pipeline as well. Now, if I attach this candidate here who's got a CV attached, James Hardy, and I put them at the status of ready to send, you will see that back on the database pipeline, James is now at the stage where he's ready to send to a client. And once you kind of put all the details in, attached to CV, it is literally as simple as dragging and dropping them into the right-hand column, selecting the job that you're going to send them to, and then the system will start to process it. It will ask for information around maybe salary expectations. You can write a pitch if you want to, interview availability, bits and pieces. You can fill all of those details in, and then you just click submit. And that, as you see on the right hand side, that candidate has now been successfully submitted. And if you jump across to the interview board, have now been moved to the sent to client stage, and you can now start to drag them down the interview stage all the way through to hired. So that's all there is really to the database pipelining tool. It's fairly simple, admittedly, but at the same time, we hope it brings value just to help tighten up the organization a little bit for independent and freelance recruiters, because it's easy to lose track of candidates that you're speaking with, especially when you're juggling multiple clients, multiple roles, multiple different candidate applications, it's important that you just keep that little bit of structure so that you don't find yourself in that position that I mentioned at the start of the video, where you've spoken to so many people and then you're struggling to remember who it is that you need to be following up with.